Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to our YouTube channel, Fearlessminds. Today we're going to cover some good Keystone habits that can change your life. In today's lessons, we're going to talk about how to properly start forming your habit. We're going to cover how to strategically pick a cue, how to structure your routine so that you get closer to the line of automaticity with half the effort, and finally how to effectively reward yourself so that your habit sticks. This is without a doubt one of the most important videos, so make sure you pay close attention. Let's get started. Remember, the cue is what triggers your brain to follow through with the routine and reach that reward. So it's important to pick a cue that appears every single day, because if you pick a cue like waking up to the sun shining to your face, you stick to your habit. Most of the time, but it's ever raining outside, you won't be prompted to follow through with the routine. At the same time, you want to pick a cue that is unavoidable. Your cue needs to be something that you can encounter every day, no matter where you are, what you're doing, or even how you're feeling. For example, the cue for my habit of reading is eating. Whenever I eat, I pick a book and read something informative. I could be sick, I could be in another country, it doesn't matter because I'll still have to eat. And other unavoidable cues that you can consider are showering, brushing teeth, logging on computer, and to commute. There's tons of possibilities that it doesn't really matter what you select as long as your cue is something that appears every single day without fail. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that you should make it possible for you to follow through with your routine immediately. Let's say, for example, the Keystone habit you selected is meditation. It may not be smart to attach this routine to the cue of, say, arriving at work. Some difficulties may arise if you plan on spending first 10 minutes of work every day meditating. Your boss might interrupt and give you an assignment, and lo and behold, you'll get sidetracked and completely forget to meditate. What you want to do is pick a cue that makes it easier for you to follow through with your routine. For example, if the Keystone habit you're trying to build is fitness, then sign up for the gym that is on your commute from work. That way, when you travel back from work, you'll naturally come across your cue, which is seeing the gym. This cue is great because when you see it, you're only seconds away from starting your routine. The final thing I want to know when it comes to picking a cue is that you want to pick a single cue. You want your brain to associate a single unique cue with a single unique routine. If half the time you're using a cue and the other half you're using cue B, you're basically building two habits at the same time. And because of this, it can take you twice as long to reach the line of automaticity, which again is the point in time where you no longer even have to think about doing your habit. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about is routine. Now, there's a huge problem with the way that majority of people look at their routine. See, most people will start new habits, set their expectation for their routine very, very high, and tell themselves that they'll work out for at least an hour and a half, 5 times a week, and they'll meditate every single day for at least 20 minutes, and that they will finish reading at least a book every single week. If you expect to perform this well every single day, you're eventually going to bump into some problems. Somewhere down the line, it could be a week, it could be a month, but there's going to be a day where you have low levels of willpower. It could be because you're sick, or it could be because you drank too much the previous night. It could even be because you've been working too much. Whatever it is, these bad days are unavoidable. Now we're going to dive deeper into the concept of willpower later in this course. But for now, I just want you to remember that these two facts about willpower are important. The first fact is that if your habit is still new, it requires a decent amount of willpower to stick to it. The closer you have it gets to the line of automaticity, the less willpower it will require. The second fact is that our brain tries best to conserve willpower. So when you drop below a certain threshold, it will do every initiative. Okay, so your willpower levels are low, and you're traveling back from work and you see your gym, which is really cute, and this means that you have to work out for an hour and a half, and what's your brain going to do is your brain is going to say that there's no way we can work out for an hour and a half with this nearly empty tank of willpower, and I can just about guarantee you that it's going to convince you and not to go. So you end up going home to binge watch a new season of Stranger Things while eating Doritos. You wake up the next morning feeling terribly, and you will feel guilty because you've technically broken your New Year's resolution. Your motivation to go to the gym just isn't the same anymore. You start skipping more days, and the next thing you know, you're back to square one. Sound familiar? Well, it should be, because this sort of thing happens all the time. This is why only 8% of the people manage to stick to their New Year's resolution. The trap that most of us fall into is that we focus too much energy on how hard we should work during our routine. Instead, we should be focusing how simply showing up In fact, someone who goes to the gym every single day and working out for 10 minutes is great. Will get to line of automaticity much faster than someone who shows up half as much, but works out for 1, 2, or even 3 hours at a time. This is because the only thing that will get you closer to the line of automaticity is consistency. Let me repeat that again. The only thing that will get you closer to making that keystone habit of yours into something you do automatically without any effort is consistency. Basically, how often you show up. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, what's the point of working out for only 10 minutes? There's no way I can lose any weight or put on any muscle if I only work out for 10 minutes. If you're right, but only to some extent, because getting our habits at a line of automaticity is number one goal. But repeating the benefits of these keystone habits is also important. That's why if you want to get the most of your keystone habit, you need to implement something I like to call the low-high bar. Here's how it works. Well, the low bar is the least amount of work you can do. That will still move your habit closer to the line of automaticity. This means that you need to at least follow all the steps of your routine, but you're allowed to do with minimal effort. For example, let's say that you're trying to make meditation into a habit. The low bar for this could be sitting in the proper meditation position that you always sit in, is setting your clock to the number you always get to, and focusing on your breathing for just 1 minute. If you think 1 minute is too hard for you for one day, then with the low willpower, you can even lower it to 30 seconds. It doesn't really matter because we're still following all steps of your routine, and this means that you're getting closer to the line of automaticity. Now, the high bar is eventually that causes you to reap the benefits of your habits, and it is the most important of work you will allow yourself to do. So let's take the previous example of our meditation habit. The high bar for this routine could be focusing on your breathing for up to 20 minutes. This means that you're allowed to meditate for anywhere from 1 minute, which is your low bar, to 20 minutes, which is your high bar. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how does this even work? Why would I even want to limit myself? The low-high bar works extremely well because of two reasons. Number one, it's extremely easy for you to complete your routine. For whatever reason you have low willpower, that task of meditating for just 30 seconds isn't enough to scare your brain to conserving its willpower. So having a low bar prevents you from missing days you normally would have. This is crucial because every single day you miss set back your progress towards the line of automaticity. Missing just one day also tends to miss even more days, especially in the beginning of our building journey. So by setting a low bar for a routine, we will avoid massive setbacks that would have likely thrown us back into square one. Well, the second reason is high bar is so effective is because by having a high bar for a routine, we will be motivated to do more than the bare minimum, even on the days where the levels of willpower are extremely low. This is because, like I mentioned in the previous video, it actually takes more willpower to put on your shoes, head out the door, and go to the gym and then the actual workout itself. Luckily, you know about the low bar, which is, if you implement, then you will almost always show up. This means that you have actually just overcome the hardest part of the routine. And since you have a high bar for this routine, I can almost guarantee you that you will find yourself thinking, well, I spent so much time and energy getting here, I might as well work a bit longer. My maximum for working out is an hour and a half, so let's try to do 30 minutes instead of 5. It's funny because at first glance, to low to high bar sounds like cheating. It sounds like a shortcut, and that's because it is. It gets you to do that line of automaticity faster and more efficiently than any other conventional method. Alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about is reward. There needs to be a prize that's worthwhile at the end of your habit loop. Otherwise, your brain has no reason to record this loop. Why should it remember that it doesn't benefit you in any way? There are 2 requirements that your reward must fulfill. The first requirement is that reward must arrive immediately, or at least very soon after the routine. Let's say, for example, that you're trying to build a habit of working out. If you tell yourself that your reward for working out is that you will look better 3 months down the line, well, that's a bad reward because the part of your brain that's responsible for building habits will not associate that reward with your routine. It is too far away. Here's a good example of immediate reward. When I was building my habit to working out, I would treat myself to a fantastic meal right after, something like a delicious steak or a large ball of curry. Well, this is a good reward because it comes immediately after my routine, and because of this, my brain starts to associate my routine of working out with the reward of food. If you're doing this properly, you should start noticing small cravings during your routine. While building my habit of working out, I started to catch myself thinking about the food I would eat right after. And that's a very good sign because the more your brain associates a reward with a specific routine, the closer you are to the line of automaticity. The second requirement for a good reward is that it has to be pleasurable. Let's say that you're trying to build a habit of reading books every day, and the reward you assign for this habit is to quote-unquote knowledge. This is a terrible reward, right? Because although the knowledge is good and can easily lead to happier life, in itself is not that pleasurable. What you could do is assign the feeling of accomplishment as a reward and focus on when you finish your reading. Well, now the feeling of accomplishment is okay and it'll do the job. But if you want to have the most success in building your habits, if you want your habits to feel exciting, and stick to what I like to call primitive reward. Primitive rewards are things that have always been rewarding, tracing back for millions and millions of years. Things like food, sex, play, socializing were and still are some of the most important activities for us as well. Now, these things ensure that our survival of genes, and because of this, they've evolved to become extremely pleasurable. So instead of assigning the reward of knowledge or even the feeling of accomplishment, so a routine of reading is a lot more effective to assign something like play or relaxation. For example, you could say, if I do my routine of reading, I can relax and watch my favorite show. Right after watching your favorite show is fun and pleasurable, and that makes a pretty good reward. So just to recap on everything. First, you want to pick a single cue that comes across every single day without fail. Assign a single unique cue to your unique routine. It's also important to note that this cue should make it easier for you to follow up immediately with your routine. So, next cue, we want to figure out the steps of your routine. Do you have to go to somewhere? If there's something that you have to set up, what do you do? Whatever it is to identify each and every single step after doing so. Now, we can create a low-high bar for these things. Your low bar can be so easy that it is impossible for you to come up with excuses to not to do it. Something easy like doing one push-up. Your high bar could be that you see yourself doing a perfect, say something like 100 push-ups. And finally, you want to assign a reward that you can receive immediately after your routine that is pleasurable. If you're having trouble thinking of good rewards, you can always just use one of the primitive rewards I mentioned before, like food, play, or socializing. You now have everything you need to start building your Keystone habit. Now you want to mention some in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.